Bring in the new year with spoon season returning at Lumen Field. We'll be diving into Seattle's latest injury report in Week 17 on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here for Blue Friday by my co-host, Nick Lee. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there, whether you're listening nearby in Moses Lake, Washington, or over in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Bengals country. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We're drawing closer to Week 17, a de facto playoff game, Seahawks and Steelers at Lumen Field. We're going to dish out a game plan for a Seahawks victory. We've got picks to click, game predictions, and much more in a jam-packed episode that is brought your way by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. When you get to the last couple weeks of the regular season, injury attrition has truly set in for every team in the NFL, and the Seahawks are no different. If you've looked at the injury report the last couple of days for Seattle coming off that win in Tennessee, it looks like the Seahawks resemble a MASH unit. Pretty much half the roster is listed either as out, limited, or as a full participant, but still listed with an injury. And unfortunately, that is to be expected this time of year, but there is a chance, Nick, the Seahawks could have at least one of their key defenders that's been out the last couple of weeks back, with Devon Witherspoon and Jamal Adams both being limited so far in practice this week.
Yeah, by far, I'm most excited about possibly getting Devon Witherspoon back. That's been, not that the Seahawks have, been absolutely dreadful on defense in his absence, but there's been a little bit of that missing juice. I was really bummed he missed the Eagles game. I wanted to see him in person. I wanted to see that. I wanted to follow 21 around. And he's getting him back would just be an infusion of energy to that defense. And you're going to, they got their work cut out for him, while the Steelers are average in many ways on offense, or worse. They got some players, they got some talent. George Pickens is one that immediately comes to mind, who just went absolutely bonkers against the Bengals. You'd like to have a guy like Devon Witherspoon there to keep things under wraps. So Jamal Adams, I'm kind of on that return. The defense has been pretty okay without him, especially Julian Love stepping in and playing well. Julian Love has his flaws, but I think just the overall shift in how the defense has been played the last few weeks without Jamal Adams, I think has been a net positive. But Devon Witherspoon, got to get him back on the field. And, I liked how Pete Carroll said earlier in the week, he's got a spark to him this week, and he's got a spark to him. And just, that's kind of the word I would use to just how he's like the spark plug. He's the, jumper cables and the battery of this defense as a rookie. That's just kind of how it feels. And getting him back on the field would be such a boon.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the possibility that he's going to be back for this game, especially because the Steelers do have some talented receivers. Deontay Johnson can be a big play threat as well, and he runs routes out of the slot and from the outside. They've got a couple other decent receivers behind him and Pickens. So this is an offense that's had issues, but receiver is a spot where they have some talent and they can really stress your corners out, especially Pickens. We saw him just manhandle the Bengals last weekend with a bunch of big plays. So that looks like a team that's going to be difficult to cover if they have time to throw. And we'll get to some of those keys to victory later. But as far as other injury updates right now, while Witherspoon looks to be trending in the right direction, I think we can safely say at this point, based on Pete Carroll's comments, that it's going to be Devin Bush season at linebacker next to Bobby Wagner. Jordan Brooks has not practiced at all this week. He's been dealing with an ankle injury for several weeks running, and he retweaked that ankle, had it twisted on Sunday in Nashville, did not play the entire second half. Devin Bush replaced him. And looking back at the All-22, Devin Bush played pretty well. He had 6 tackles and he had a tackle for loss in that game. And he was one of the reasons Derrick Henry only rushed for 30 yards on 11 carries after halftime. So they got solid performance from him. The other noteworthy players that are on this list, DK Metcalf was added on Thursday with a back issue. From what I'm being told, it's nothing worth being concerned about. They are just giving him some rest. And Ken Walker III with a shoulder illness, he was able to play last week. Unless this illness is really bad, I don't anticipate a scenario where he is not playing either. Draymond Jones played through the shoulder issue last week. I would think this time of year, it really boils down to the teams that win late in the season, Nick. They're the ones that have the players that are able to gut it through injuries because everybody's banged up at this stage of the year. That's just the reality.
Yeah, it's a battle of attrition. We've seen that time and time again. The teams that make a run into the playoffs and go late to January and February, yes, they're, of course, one of the better teams in the NFL, but also they're usually some of the healthiest. You saw the Eagles and Chiefs last year both had some pretty good luck with health last year. And some of that is coming home to roost this year for both teams as far as health and, lack of depth. And for the Seahawks, this is certainly a time of year, de facto playoff game where if you can go, you got to go. If it's a pain tolerance issue, you got to try to gut it out. I know there's some times where it's not quite that simple where you don't want to re-aggravate or make something even more serious. But if it's, just bumps and bruises and things that, maybe week 1, week 2, or, ahead of an early bye, you sit a guy out. Now's not the time for that. Now is time to put the pedal all the way down and get all these guys, playing as much as they can. Cause this is absolutely, you lose this game. Yeah. That you still technically have a chance at the playoffs. But you really got to win out to really, make it solid. And you need all these players, especially the Devon Witherspoon, Draymond Jones, DK Metcalf, Ken Walker. You got to have those guys going.
If there's really good news, Damian Lewis, who was banged up at the end of the game on Sunday, he's been a full participant this week. They're listing him now with a neck injury, interestingly enough. Pete Carroll was talking about it being a knee issue on Sunday, but he did practice in full on Thursday, so the Seahawks should have their offensive line at full strength. Abraham Lucas was listed as full too. He's kind of just been on there since coming back because that knee isn't quite all the way back, but from his play, he is getting more comfortable on the field. So overall, even though this is a lengthy list, I'd say most of these guys are going to be in uniform on Sunday. It's just that time of year. Guys are going to be in and out of practice, just trying to preserve them so they can be ready for game day. The only one that's really a huge question mark, and quite frankly, I'd be stunned if he plays, is Jordan Brooks. But the rest of the guys on this injury report, I'd anticipate there's a very good chance that they are going to be playing for the Seahawks on Sunday. So don't let the length of that injury report deter you. That's just the way this time of year is. Everybody's got a laundry list of injuries by week 17. The Seahawks should have most of these players available when they duke it out with the Steelers on Sunday at Lumen Field. Heading into that matchup, we are going to devise a game plan for a Seahawks victory. We'll be looking at offense and defense, keys to victory. What do the Seahawks need to do to get to 9-7 and further improve their chances of making it back to the postseason? We'll get to that next here on our Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team, and they make it fast and free. When I was a site manager, LinkedIn Jobs was my go-to to post writing positions to land top candidates, and they made the process easy and seamless. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. Take my word for it. It's so easy. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, just one day. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, and they might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, this process is intuitive, it's quick, it's easy. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We've got a huge game coming up this Sunday at Lumen Field, Seahawks and Steelers. I'm Corbin Smith, your lead host here on the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Glad to be joined on Blue Friday by my co-host, Nick Lee. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you here during this holiday season for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. Nick, heading into this game on Sunday, we can't overstate the significance of this game for both teams. This truly is an elimination game for the Steelers. If the Steelers lose this game, they are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs in the AFC. Right now, they are just barely hanging on to their playoff lives in a deep conference. As for the Seahawks, they have the number 7 seed right now. And as you mentioned earlier, they could lose this game and still make the playoffs by winning next week. But you want to win out, because if they get to 10-7, they are guaranteed to have one of those last 2 wildcard spots. So this is truly a de facto playoff game for both teams. On the offensive side of the football, looking at the Seahawks going up against a really stingy Steelers defense in this game. What's the first key in your mind if the Seahawks want to hold serve at home and get that 9th victory?
And then a quick note too. I mean, it could depend on, do you want to go to Philly or do you want to go to Detroit? I mean, that might be how this plays out. But the first one for me, I know I will kind of play spoiler here. Usually we have the run game on here, and they're 6-0 when they're 100+ yards. They just won a game with 58 rushing yards, so we're not going to do that this week. The real winning formula has been, it's been taking care of the football. And for this one, let's have a clean New Year's Eve, no picks, just that nice goose egg in that interception column. The Steelers are 0-4 actually when they don't force an interception, and the Seahawks are 5-1 this year with 0 turnovers. So there's the formula right there. Yeah, we can say the run game, sustain drives, all that good stuff. But taking care of the football has clearly been the formula with the team, like with the Geno Smith led team. We've seen that efficiency, taking care of the ball, taking care of opportunities that the defense gives you. It's not this high octane explosive offense. It is taking care of the football is rule number 1. And Pete Carroll has been preaching that, the whole time in Seattle. And this team has been pretty good at it so far, for the most part, despite, with a few exceptions. But I think just keeping that 0 in the interception column and really in the turnover column and just taking care of the football, that's a great way to, playing an average team in your building. That's a great way to keep them kind of at arm's length.
And this is a very aggressive defense. And I don't mean that they're going to blitz a ton, but this is an aggressive defense that's going to mix up their looks. They're going to run simulated blitzes or simulated pressures where they're going to still be sending 3 or 4, but they're going to send them from different areas. They'll drop defensive linemen back. They just play a very aggressive brand of football, and they do that looking to get sacks. This is a team that's near the top of the league in that category. They like to create turnovers. So you've got to find a way to limit or eliminate, in this case, those interceptions. Be smart with the football. We've seen Geno Smith do a better job of that his last couple starts. Take care of the football. That is a huge issue against the Steelers defense, because if you give their offense short field, as we saw last week, the Bengals did that. They had 3 interceptions from Jake Browning. That was able to give the offense easy field position to be able to go score points. Don't give a downtrodden offense freebies like that. And so take care of the football. Don't give them short field on offense where their deficiencies don't matter as much. They can mask them and they can take advantage of those opportunities. Just don't give them the football in those situations. And for me, I'm looking to the 3rd down. This is truly a game, and we'll talk about it again, I'm sure, here during this segment. But both these teams are near the bottom of the NFL in 3rd down efficiency. Now, the Seahawks have been better as of late, regardless of who the quarterback has been, Geno Smith and Drew Lock. They've done a better job in the last month on 3rd downs, dating back to that loss in Dallas where they were able to convert a large chunk of their 3rd downs. But this has still been an Achilles heel for this team. And I think against this Pittsburgh defense, with all the talent they've got, especially the edge defenders, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, in order to take advantage of your home field with the crowd, I think you got to have sustained drives against this defense. So can you get 45% or more of your 3rd downs and convert them, move the chains? They've been better. Carry that over this game. I think if they're struggling on 3rd down and this really becomes a low-scoring slugfest, I think it actually plays in favor of the Steelers with their defense and the offensive issues they've had. But if you can sustain drives, get the ball downfield, get into the red zone, and you're able to turn those into points, then you have a chance to make this, I don't want to say a comfortable win, but it gives you a much better chance to get the victory in a game against a desperate Steelers squad.
Comfortable win in the Pete Carroll era in this economy? I don't know. And another great way to sustain drives is to, keep Geno Smith upright. And there's a certain guy across the way. I know he's been talked about ad nauseum this week, but TJ Watt, you mentioned Alex Highsmith, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton. They're having a great year over there. And that's the strongest part of this team. And limiting the Steelers to, it's not, allow 0 sacks. Let's be realistic here with what they have on that side. 3 or fewer sacks. And let's talk about why. The Steelers are 5-0 when they get 4 or more sacks. And the Seahawks are 8-3 when allowing 3 or less sacks. So there's another formula. You're taking care of the football and not letting Geno Smith, spill, get that uniform dirty, keep it clean. Don't on New Year's Eve, don't spill the champagne on the floor, get the jalapeno popper on your, I don't know, I'm a jalapeno popper guy, but don't get it on your shirt. Keep that uniform clean for Geno Smith on New Year's Eve. And at least clean enough to where 3 sacks doesn't kill you.
Yeah, it really this game boils down to protecting the quarterback and not turning over the football. You have to play a clean game. That doesn't mean you put up 40 points on the scoreboard or you get a bunch of explosive plays. You're trying to protect your quarterback. Maybe it's a little bit more of a conservative game plan, but that's okay to an extent. You want to protect the football, and you want to make this a game where mistakes are not going to give the Steelers an advantage or put them in a position where they can pull the upset. And so I think keeping Geno Smith upright, he's going to need to be having his head on a swivel with the pass rushers the Steelers have. The offensive line, they're going to need to provide the tackles help with the edge rushing talent that the Steelers are going to be bringing to Seattle for this game. If they can do that, then they really improve their odds of winning this game. As for the defensive side of the football, again, this is Steelers offense up until last week that has been one of the worst in the NFL all year long. Only 13 passing touchdowns, which is in the bottom 3 in the NFL. They've played a bunch of different quarterbacks, and that's made it tricky. It's made it difficult for their offense to get going. They fired their first coordinator, Matt Canada, after the midway point of the season. So there's been a lot of things going on. But for me, the first big key, Mason Rudolph's going to be the one under center. He had maybe the best game of his career last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. He took advantage of some short fields, was able to get the ball downfield to George Pickens. But Mason Rudolph, and if you guys are hearing a door that's being slammed in the background, I've got a 3-year-old nephew and I've got a cat that are in the next room over. So that may explain what is going on in the next room. But anyway, Rudolph is still a quarterback historically that if you can get pressure on him, he has been razzled. This has been a QB that has been willing to chuck the ball into tight spaces. He'll make frantic throws. Last week, the Bengals were not able to get that done. Can the Seahawks speed up his clock and force him into some of those bad decisions? Because this has been a team, when they throw interceptions this year, it has been a real problem for this Steelers offense. In fact, you look at the records, and we throw these out there. I don't throw this out lightly. The Steelers are 1-5 if their quarterback throws a pick this year. 1-5. 1 out of 6 games they've won. So if you can coax him into one mistake in this game, it dramatically improves your chances of being able to win at home. So I think this is as crucial as anything. You got to take care of the ball, and you're going to find a way to get it out of Mason Rudolph's hands and create some turnovers in this football game.
Yeah, and he doesn't honestly scare me a ton. Career 83.6 passer rating. It's not one of those games where, like, oh man, you need to force 2 or 3 turnovers to keep yourself in this. No, it's not that kind of game. And how many times this year, even it's the year of the backup quarterback, have we seen a backup quarterback come in and just kind of light the world on fire for a week or two and then just completely bottom out? We've seen that before. The teams get film on them. The jig is up, and I think that could hold true here as well. And then another third down point as well. The Pittsburgh is 25th in third down conversions, and the Seahawks are 26th. So it's pretty much who sucks less on third downs could end up winning this game. And so the Seahawks obviously need to hold their own on defense on third downs, because a great way to let a team like the Steelers hang around offensively is just keep letting them convert 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8. Let those drives sustain those drives, because then your offense isn't on the field trying to sustain drives and get points. They're continuing to dictate things. So you don't want that to happen. So third downs is another crucial. I know it's kind of a little cliche, but this is a game where both teams have struggled on third down. So you got to win. It's kind of, again, like who can suck less on third downs, I think could win this game.
Yeah, and I also look at this game. This is a Steelers offense. I know last week that they had a bunch of explosives. They got those big plays downfield to George Pickens, but I feel like that is the biggest key against this offense. Force them to dink and dunk their way downfield because they haven't been able to consistently do that this year. The run game has been abysmal for most of the year. It's been better since they changed coordinators. They do have two quality backs, but the line has struggled at times to create running room for those guys. This is not an offense that is built to be able to orchestrate a bunch of long, sustained drives. That's just not the way that they are constructed. That has been an issue for them all year. But if you let them get splash plays, that is going to be a major impactful issue for the Seahawks. So limit them to 3 plays or fewer of 20-plus yards in the passing game. I think if they can do that, don't let George Pickens take over the game. Keep him in front of you. Let them get some first downs. That's fine, but don't let them get those chunk plays that are going to allow them to get into the end zone quicker, into field goal range quicker. Force them to work their way downfield. That means more snaps. That's more opportunities for Rudolph to make mistakes. Last week, the Bengals were not able to do any of these things. The Seahawks can find a way to make them work and grind out drives. Rudolph has a history of making mistakes, and so you got to limit those big plays. Don't let them get those chunk plays where they can get into your territory quickly. They've been better the last 2 weeks. If they can carry that over into this game, to me, that might be the most important thing defensively, even more so than pressure. Don't let them get those big plays downfield. That's been the only recipe of success consistently for the Steelers to score points this year. So don't let them win on those explosives. Up next, we're going to have our picks to click, our game predictions, and much more to wrap up Blue Friday. You're listening to the Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Entering week 17 of the season, make sure to check out the incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel this season, there's no better time than to get into the action at the new year. The app is so easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options. You can look at spreads, such as the Seahawks being a 3-point favorite at home against the Steelers, player props, such as Geno Smith's total touchdowns for this weekend, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and enjoy the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. This Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks is also brought to you by DoorDash. Why root for your team on an empty stomach? That's a game day travesty that ensures you won't be cheering at your very best. And right now, you can order on DoorDash and save on football watch party favorites. 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order on the DoorDash app using the code LOCKED23. When I'm kicking back and watching the game with my friends and family, I love to order Jet City Pizza. It is the best gluten-free pizza place in the Seattle region. And make sure you get a 2-liter root beer and some cinnamon sticks for the rest of the party. DoorDash makes the process so easy. I don't have to leave the comfort of my couch, and I can have great tasting food before and after kickoff. It's so simple. I've ordered Jet City off the DoorDash app so much, the people who manage the restaurant know me by name. If you're ready to satisfy your taste buds on game day, quench those cravings with your local favorites on DoorDash. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order on the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Subject to change. Terms apply. You're listening to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. It's your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host, Nick Lee. We're gearing up for a huge de facto playoff game on Sunday. Seahawks and Steelers at Lumen Field. Major playoff ramifications. The Steelers, this is an elimination game for them. If they lose, they're out of the playoff hunt in the AFC. The Seahawks, it wouldn't be the same for them. Even if they lose this game, they still have a chance to get in, but it would certainly hurt their chances of making the postseason with another loss. Let's get to our weekly picks to click here, Nick. And last week was a pretty good week for us. I didn't get the touchdown from Tyler Lockett, but almost got to the 100-yard mark, almost double-digit catches. So a pretty good game from him. Boy, Mafe had a monster game for you. So we both had some big winners. And looking towards this game on the offensive side of the ball, this is a very good Steelers defense, and yet they have shown some cracks in the armor at times this year. Who do you look at as your pick to click for the Seahawks on offense in this game?
I'm going a bit off the cuff here a little bit, just to shake things up. But I like how he's been playing lately, and that's Evan Brown, the center. Sounds weird. I'm still Team Olu for the future at center. I think Evan Brown's been fairly serviceable. Certainly, I think he's been better than some of the play they've had at center, especially last year. He's allowed just 4 pressures with 0 sacks in his last 4 games. So playing pretty well, going up against a rookie Keanu Benton, who's actually had a pretty decent season himself along the other side for Pittsburgh. Larry Ogunjobi probably be in there too. So he's got some talent to face, but I like that he's probably not going to have to block TJ Watt very much. That's one nice thing. He might, on a weird, stunt they pull every once in a while. But so I'm not going to do someone that's going to be perhaps going up against TJ Watt. But Evan Brown, I like how he's been playing. And really, TJ Watt's probably going to get his. But if the Seahawks can hold serve on the interior line, I really like their chances.
Yeah, and I'm going to go a little off the cuff myself with a player who has really had a quiet season, at least in the pass catching department, and that's Will Dissly. And the reason that I'm going with Will Dissly is he has a career track record that's pretty good against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In fact, he had a multi-touchdown game against them, and I know Russell Wilson was still the quarterback at this point, but I believe it was back in the 2019 season when they played in Pittsburgh that he scored a couple touchdowns in that game. And they have got major injury issues. We talked about this on our crossover special yesterday, that the Steelers have had a bunch of linebackers come in and out of the lineup. They've been rotating players. They brought Miles Jack out of retirement to play for them. So this is a team that's had a lot of injuries and issues at linebacker. They have been susceptible at times as of late to tight ends. I just think this is a game that shapes up well for Will Dissly, who's got a good track record against the Steelers, to have another good game against them at Lumen Field. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, we talked about the issues the Steelers have had scoring points up until last week, but Mason Rudolph had a great game. They've got plenty of weapons. Who is your pick to click for the Seahawks on defense going into this game?
It's almost like the Steelers could have used a talented, pretty athletic linebacker that the Seahawks currently employ, and that's Devin Bush, former Steeler. I'm going to go with him. I like the kind of revenge game factor going on. I'm just listening to some of the quotes he's made. Seems like he's pretty motivated for this game, which I really like. Might serve as an audition of sorts for him. I don't think he's the guy moving forward next to Jordan Brooks in Seattle, but this is a game where he could change our minds and play himself into the formula for next year. So I really like this spot for Devin Bush. And like you mentioned, I think he came on pretty strong in the second half of that game in Tennessee. And now he's coming back and kind of getting back as a second straight week of kind of knowing he's going to be the guy, at least get a significant snaps. So I like the Devin Bush revenge game against the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the outside, and this is a player that's had a quiet year, but this strikes me as a matchup where Darrell Taylor's speed, just his pure quickness off the ball, could cause major problems for the Steelers. Dan Moore has given up more than 50 pressures this year, according to Pro Football Focus. He's given up 7 sacks. He's had a lot of trouble in previous games against speed rushers. I think the Seahawks are going to try to get Darrell Taylor a lot of snaps off the right side so that he can take advantage of that speed against Dan Moore. And even on the other side, you've got a rookie in Broderick Jones, who I think has a bright future, but he's had some rough games here and there, expected rookie growing pains. I like this matchup for Seattle's edge rushers, and I think Darrell Taylor's speed in particular, this could be one of those splash games for him that he has, and he had a couple of them late in the year. Last year, I think he has in this game. In fact, I have 1.5 sacks and 3 quarterback hits in this game. I think he's going to be very active, taking advantage of a tackle group that has been vulnerable for good chunks of this season for the Steelers. Let's get to our game predictions now. The Seahawks, according to our friends at FanDuel, are 3-point favorites at home on Sunday afternoon. 2 teams coming in with the same exact record, major playoff ramifications. Do the Seahawks get it done on Sunday, Nick, or do you see the steel curtain being too tough on defense and the Seahawks end up falling back to 500?
Well, I certainly like the fact that this is at home, and this is, one of those classic, if you can't beat a very average Steelers team at home, you really don't maybe deserve to be in the playoffs. This is kind of one of those games where you can kind of put yourself against it there. However, I do see this being close. And I know you said that the Steelers might be favored in a closer, lower scoring, mucked it up game. That's how Pete Carroll rolls too. So I'll push back a little bit. That's their DNA. It's not going to be comfortable. I say it's so nice they're going to do it thrice. 20-17 win again, the third straight week. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Hopefully it doesn't require another, sub 1 minute left, frantic comeback. I'd like to think it's 20-10 until late or something like that, but we know it's not going to be comfortable. Again, the Steelers are desperate, so that can play into it as well. Dangerous when a team is desperate on their last leg. But I like the Seahawks at home. I like they've been playing a lot better. They've got their confidence. They got the swagger back. Maybe get Devon Witherspoon back is a big boon as well. So I like 20-17 for the third straight week.
Yeah, I tend to believe this game is going to be right in that mix for that 3-point spread. I think it's going to be very close up until the finish, but I see this game ending a little bit differently than the last couple of weeks have been. And you mentioned not needing that frantic drive. I think the Seahawks are going to make a emphatic game-shutting drive at the very end of the game. I think it's going to be close, and then they are going to slam the door shut on the Steelers at the end. Instead of a game-winning drive, it's a game-clinching, a game-securing drive, something we haven't seen the Seahawks do. I just think that they have more talent on the outside of both sides of the ball. The Steelers have a lot of significant injuries, particularly on the defensive side. I think the Seahawks are going to be able to get a few chunk plays. TJ Watt worries me. That defensive line worries me. I don't know they're going to be able to run the ball much in this game, but I think the defense is going to be able to get after Mason Rudolph. I think they're going to generate some turnovers in this game, a little bit lower scoring, but I've got the Seahawks winning this one by 7, 23-16. I think it's going to be close, but at the very end, maybe they tack on a field goal that ends up being that game-clinching score at the end to help put the Steelers, a team that struggled to score touchdowns this year, away late at Lumen Field. We'll see what happens. As always, you can follow me on X and Threads at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Nick on X at NickLee51. Make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to ensure you don't miss a single episode. As always, coming up on Sunday after the game, I'll have my weekly post-game show, Game Balls, 3 Up, 3 Down, key storylines, and much more. Make sure you're listening in. That'll be a few hours after the final play at Lumen Field. Hopefully, we'll be covering another Seahawks victory. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy the game on Sunday. Go Hawks.